hello, Planeteers. I am Antoinette. I am a Goodwill Ambassador for the UN Environment Program, and I am the founder of the nonprofit organization Cora. And today, I am truly excited to talk to you guys about precious waste, circular solutions for communities by communities. And although I am no expert, I have been blessed to have been surrounded by some of the most brilliant minds and biggest hearts in conservation and humanitarian work. And today I hope to share with you some of the wonderful things that I've learned along the way and some of the things that have truly shocked me and changed the way I view the world forever. Now, the UN Environment Program tells us that we are faced with a triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution of all forms, with pollution being one of the most recognizable and visible to us all because it is everywhere. And what is the way to solve this? Well, there are three powerful pillars that we need: systemic change, business unusual, and of course, collective action. But just how do we get this done? When we began our journey at Cora almost 10 years ago, we had no idea that we were on our way to establishing a nonprofit organization. We were a group of family and friends that simply wanted to come together on a regular basis, consistently, to be able to give back to people in the planet in any way we could, most especially to communities in need. So this began with a humble food rescue program, which, of course, as volunteers without funding and resources, we turned to the private sector. Companies and brands that had excess products that were near their expiration date but could no longer be sold. And this could instantly be diverted to communities in need through the power of volunteerism. And this helped us tackle food waste and hunger together. But this was just the beginning. We learned so much that drove us into further action. For instance, 1/5 of all food produced across the world each year is thrown away or wasted. And just 1/3 of what we throw away is already enough to end world hunger. So when we speak of hunger, it is not an issue of a lack of resources. It is actually an issue of a misallocation of it. And even worse, food waste has huge impacts on the environment. If it were a country, it would be the third largest greenhouse gas emitter in the world, next to the US and China. Food wastage is actually responsible for 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions. This is 4 times that of the entire airline industry. Imagine that. So as we talk about less travel and less air travel, we need to take a serious look and have a discussion about reducing our food waste. Now, this happens because when food is wasted and is thrown away, when it's not consumed or composted, it ends up in the trash. It ends up in landfills and dump sites. And when this happens, it produces a greenhouse gas called methane, which is 28 to 80 times more powerful than CO2. So food waste is an invisible killer, harming both the environment and human health. And this drove us further into learning more about waste. So we learned about plastics. And of course, with plastic pollution, one of the first easiest ways that we can get involved is to pick up litter wherever we see it. And so we started gathering volunteers and bringing everyone together every single month at the Las Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park at Manila Bay, which is a protected area. So through these coastal cleanups, we're able to help protect biodiversity, clean the litter that is there, and of course, help communities that are surrounding the area. But guess what we learned from doing coastal cleanups all these years? Coastal cleanups are not the solution to plastic pollution, but they must be done because of everything that is out there littering our earth, harming human health, wildlife, the economy, and the environment. We took a step up and turned our coastal cleanups into citizen science activities so that we can train really quickly volunteers of any age to become citizen scientists. So at every cleanup, data is collected on the types of waste that we are able to find, collect, how much of it we collect, its weight, and the location. This is then given to scientists and lawmakers and business leaders. This information helps us form policies, legislations, technologies, and innovations to help us solve the issue. But just why is plastic such a big problem? Why are we talking about it so much? So earlier I said food waste is the third largest greenhouse gas emitter in the world. Plastics are actually the fifth. But the problem is we are producing over 400 million tons of plastic waste every single year. And this is equivalent to one garbage truck of plastics being dumped into the ocean every single minute. And what makes this extremely horrible is the fact that plastics last forever. And when I say forever, I literally mean forever. Because plastics do not biodegrade. And it would be wrong to even use the term because they do not biodegrade. They go through a process called photodegradation, which means they break apart into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces through time, through external factors, natural reasons, or it could even be through man-made reasons as well. And these microplastics are all over the planet. Now, before I get to that, I'd like to talk more about and go in depth on the types of microplastics. So there are two kinds. We have the kind that is naturally occurring. We find these at coastal cleanups, at beaches across the world. They break apart on their own through the environment and external factors. This you see here was produced intentionally and added to products as microbeads. Not all microbeads are natural. A lot of them are also made of plastics, whether it's in your scrubs, your creams, your toothpastes, and so much more. And there are so many microplastics on Earth that they say there are more microplastics here in our world than all the stars in our galaxy. Imagine that. That really was something that struck me hard. And this was something I learned years ago. And when it comes to microplastics, remember how I said they last forever? Well, when plastics break apart and get smaller and smaller, they actually turn invisible. Basically, we can't see them with the naked eye anymore, but they are still there. And every single day, we are breathing in microplastics through the air. We are drinking it through every single kind of water that we can acquire, from tap to fresh water, all the way to bottled water. We are eating it in our food. Microplastics have even been found in placentas and in the human blood. We are just beginning to understand the implications of microplastics to human health. But scientists have already revealed that microplastics are actually harming us through endocrine disruptors that directly target hormones and cause various forms of cancers. The WWF released a study revealing that 2,000 tiny pieces of microplastics every week are ingested by human beings, which is the equivalent of an entire credit card worth going through our bodies. And even worse, when we take a look at how plastics are made. Plastics are made of fossil fuels. You heard that right. 99% of plastics are derived and made from chemicals that come from oil, natural gas, and coal, all unclean and dirty sources. And this, of course, negates our efforts for a just energy transition. And so if we are looking towards a just energy transition to fight climate change, we need to look at a just transition for plastics. And this brings me to a crucial topic of how plastic pollution impacts social injustices across the world. The World Bank released a study that every single day in the Philippines, we discard 163 million plastic sachets, 48 million plastic bags, 45 million thin film bags, and 3 million diapers. And guess who people end up blaming? People end up blaming people, us, consumers. And this is one of the greatest injustices in the world today, most especially for vulnerable communities who are struggling every day, fighting to make ends meet and provide basic needs for their family. This solution lies in the hands of governments, creating policies and legislations to protect the rights of people. And it is truly important for businesses to take the way, because as human beings, we all want to do better. And we all succumb to what is available, what we can afford, and what is provided. And so if these solutions do not exist, how can we expect everyone to participate? One of the biggest things we hear from people about plastic segregation is, why are we going to segregate when it gets mixed together anyway? And so we really need to see how better products can be made and how better policies can be made to lead us forward. The World Bank also revealed in this study that $890 million is lost every single year in the Philippines when plastics are discarded rather than recycled. This does not mean recycling alone is the solution, because across the world, only 8 to 12% of plastics are actually recycled. And this is because a lack of waste management systems that are efficient, affordable, and accessible to everyone. And as we take a look at this, you will notice that in the list of R's, recycling is actually at the bottom, because recycling does come last. Before we even get to that, we have to reduce our overall consumption so that we make as little waste as possible. We need to refuse what's not necessary. We need to reuse. By bringing a single water bottle with you every single day, a reusable bottle, you can already prevent up to 1,000 plastic bottles from entering the environment every single year. Imagine that, the power of individual action. And of course, when done collectively, wow. Redesign. Design is actually where the circular economy starts, with design and recycling. So this brings us to the circular economy, which has a simple concept from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation: designing out waste and pollution, keeping products and materials in use, and regenerating natural systems. Here's a simple diagram that shows where we're at right now. The linear economy shows how we take, make, use, and throw away. Recycling shows how we take, make, use, recycle, and then throw away. Because not everything can be recycled, and not everything can be recycled infinitely. Eventually, it still ends up getting thrown away. But with a circular economy, there is so much more, from less take of raw materials to make the product, using upcycled or recyclable materials, all the way to making sure that when we are done with using it, before we even get to recycling, we can remanufacture, refurbish, harvest parts, reuse, share, gift, reimagine, repair, and then we can recycle. This inspired our journey with the vision of possibly empowering communities and women as leaders through the circular economy. And that is how we began the Ikot Center in Parañaque City, Philippines, the first ever established, led completely by women, with a simple concept of dropping off your clean, dry, and segregated recyclables, getting it weighed, collecting the data, checking the points that you get for the day. For instance, on this board, it was 40 pesos for a kilogram of aluminum cans. And then you can go to Station 3, get it exchanged for local goods, rice, vegetables, eco-friendly products, or get it deposited as e-cash. Now, this works because of the end-of-life market partners. From being able to support local junk shops, selling to them, purchasing from them, supporting local livelihood initiatives that create products. For instance, this wonderful group of ladies takes used flour sacks, similar to this, from bakeries across the country and turns them into bags and other products. And upcycling innovations that take recyclables and turns them into these high-quality materials that you see right here. And this, of course, supports green procurement for government institutions and businesses across the world. Municipal solid waste is a huge issue everywhere, and we produce over 2 billion tons of it each year. That is why at the Ikot Center, we started on a barangay level. It needs to start at the source, at households, schools, businesses, and institutions. UNEP, the United Nations Environment Program, says that a zero-waste approach is the key to solving this global issue, which of course keeps waste out of landfills, incinerators, and the environment, offers us to reduce, reuse, recycle, and of course, so that we throw as little away as possible. Here are 8 ways that the UN has shared that we can take actions together to beat waste pollution. Take on textile waste, combat food waste, crack down on plastic pollution, reduce resource use in products, avoid electronic waste, bolster waste management, rethink city design and management, and taking on hazardous waste. Ultimately, this boils down to 3 key points that I mentioned earlier: systemic change, government leadership, business unusual, and collective action that we can do together. We already have what it takes to beat waste pollution, but we need to act now, and we need to act together. And as we go about our way every single day, may we always remember that waste isn't waste until we waste it. Thank you.